My beloved child, gather close, for tonight I speak to you with a trembling heart. The wind outside may seem calm, the night may appear ordinary, but in the realm beyond your eyes, something has shifted. I feel it in my chest the way a shepherd senses danger before a wolf appears. I feel it the way a father feels when heaven leans close and whispers not in thunder but in warning. Last night, before the lamps dimmed and the world grew silent, a presence entered my room, holy, fierce, and filled with purpose. The air changed first. It thickened, like the breath of eternity had paused in my doorway. And then a warmth spread, not the warmth of fire, but the warmth of 1,000 unseen wings stirring in the air. My child Archangel Michael stepped forth, not as an image, not as a distant thought, but as a warrior of light whose gaze pierced through me the way dawn slices through darkness. His countenance shone brighter than polished gold, yet carried a sternness that made my soul bow without a word. His voice was not loud, but it carried the weight of a kingdom. And he said only this: tell them, someone is watching their house. This is not a drill. Tonight, something will happen. And if they ignore this warning, it will be too late. My child, when those words struck my spirit, I felt the earth shift beneath my feet. I have heard messages before. I have seen visions. I have felt the presence of angels, but never have I felt such urgency. Never have I felt heaven tremble with this kind of seriousness. It was not the tone of invitation. It was the tone of declaration. A holy alarm. A final alert. A last trumpet before the moment arrives. I looked at the Archangel and whispered, what is watching them? What stands outside their homes? But he lifted his hand, not to silence, but to steady me, and said, they will understand through the message. Speak it. Tell it without fear. And so, my beloved child, I speak now, not as a storyteller, not as a teacher, but as a vessel carrying the very last words of a heavenly messenger. Someone is watching your house. Not someone with flesh, not someone with footsteps, but a presence that studies the window of your soul, watching what you allow into your spirit, watching what you stand for, watching what you ignore. Tonight, something spiritual will take place. Not something to destroy you, but something to awaken you. Yet if you ignore the warning, if you shrug your shoulders as though heaven spoke casually, you will miss the divine shield that is being extended toward you in this very hour. So listen closely. Stay near me through this message. Let nothing distract you. For this night is not like other nights. And I will reveal everything heaven showed me. My beloved child, lean in again, for the night grows deeper and the veil between realms grows thinner. As you hear my voice now, I want you to imagine the hush that falls upon a field just before a storm breaks. That was the silence that lived in my chamber when the vision came upon me. I had just settled myself in prayer, letting my thoughts drift like small boats toward heaven, when suddenly the atmosphere shifted. It was as though every particle in the room began listening. The candle beside me did not flicker by wind, yet its flame bent low as if bowing before an unseen authority. My heartbeat slowed, not from fear, but from awe. It was then I knew a messenger was drawing near, And then, without walking, without entering through door or window, without disturbing even a grain of dust, he appeared. Archangel Michael, the warrior who stands at the gates of nations, the guardian who wrestles with darkness no mortal can face, the one whose presence causes both realms to stand still. His arrival did not startle me. It steadied me. Light gathered around him like rivers of glass, flowing from his armor, cascading onto the floor, illuminating even the corners of the room that had not seen brightness in years. His wings were not flapping, yet I felt their power, like mountains moving in quiet strength. His eyes glowed not with fire, but with an ancient understanding, the way the eyes of a seasoned soldier carry the memory of every battle and every victory. He looked directly into me, not at me, and I felt as though every hidden chamber of my soul was laid bare. It was not judgment, it was clarity. Then, without lifting his voice, he spoke with the weight of eternity. The message is urgent. The watchers are near. Someone is observing the homes of the children of God. Tell them. They must hear you. His tone was stern, but beneath it was a compassion that was deeper than any tenderness I have ever known. It was the compassion of a guardian who has fought for us long before we ever learned to pray. I asked him, in a trembling whisper, what this meant. He did not answer immediately. Instead, the light around him shifted, forming visions that danced like living flames. I saw houses, small, large, poor, wealthy, scattered across the world. Some glowed with warmth. Some flickered like dying embers. And some were surrounded by a dark figure, not attacking, not entering, but watching with old patience. These watchers had no faces, no bodies, no form. They were shadows of intent, observers of weakness, seekers of entry points into human hearts. They studied the occupants of each house the way a thief studies the habits of a family. They watched moods, words, secrets, and vulnerabilities. Then Michael's voice returned. This is not the watching of men. It is the watching of spirits. Some watch to harm. Some watch to test. Some watch because darkness has been invited unknowingly. And some watch because heaven is preparing an intervention. As he said this, the vision shifted again, and I saw great movement in the skies, like armies gathering behind curtains of light. Heaven was preparing for something. Not destruction, but awakening. Not war, but separation of light and shadow. Not punishment, but revelation. My beloved child, as I stood in that vision, I felt both a trembling fear and a profound peace. Fear, because what is unseen always holds mystery. Peace, because the message did not come from a place of abandonment, but a place of protection. Archangel Michael leaned closer, and though he was made of glory and flame, I felt no heat, only a weight of importance pressing upon my spirit. He said, "Tonight the watchers will move. Tonight the households will feel something shift. Some will feel a stirring, some a heaviness, some a confrontation within their own hearts. But all will sense that heaven is closer than before. Tell them to prepare. Tell them to stand. Tell them to awaken." I knew then that this message was not meant to frighten, but to alert. Not to scare, but to strengthen. Not to make people cower, but to make them aware. For the one who knows danger is the one who can avert it. The one who recognizes a spiritual shift is the one who can stand firm. The one who hears a heavenly warning is the one who receives a heavenly shield. My child, I bring this to you because Michael commanded it, and heaven does not speak lightly. What is watching your house is not greater than the one who protects you. That awareness is required. Not panic. Not dread. Awareness. For tonight, the veil will move, and the watchers will be revealed not by sight, but by the stirring in the soul. My beloved child, draw nearer still, for what I am about to share flows directly from the vision the Archangel unfolded before me. My spirit trembles even now as I recall it. After Michael revealed the images of houses watched by unseen shadows, the scene shifted once more. This time, the air around us thickened, almost like the atmosphere before a deep storm. The light that surrounded him dimmed slightly, not because his radiance weakened, but because what he intended to show me required a backdrop of solemn darkness. And in that darkness, I beheld the figure he called the Watcher at the door. This figure did not walk. It hovered, almost as though it were stitched into the fabric of the shadows themselves. It had no face, no arms, no legs, and yet it had presence. Its form was like a silhouette cut out of night, bending and shifting with a slow, deliberate pulse. Michael told me, this is the presence that stands at the threshold of many homes. It does not force its way in. It waits. It studies. It observes the cracks in a person's spirit, the wounds left unhealed, the anger left unchecked, the silence where prayer should be. As I watched, the shadow leaned toward various houses in the vision, listening at their doors. And what did it listen for? Not the sound of footsteps. Not the laughter or commotion of daily life. It listened for vulnerability. It listened for spiritual fatigue. It listened for hearts that had grown weary and minds that had grown distracted. In some homes, the shadow could not approach. A glow of light shielded the doorway, pushing it back like a tie. These were homes where peace lived, where forgiveness was practiced, where conversations with heaven were not rare, but daily visitors. But in other homes, the shadow pressed closely. In some, it lingered for only a moment, testing the boundary. In others, it remained fixed, as though anchoring itself to an opening it sensed. My beloved child, hearing this now, do not fear. Instead, let your heart awaken, for understanding is the beginning of victory. What watches your home is not a creature with claws, but a presence seeking opportunity in moments of weakness. It is not stronger than you. It is not greater than Michael. But it is patient, and patience is often the sharpest weapon of the unseen dart. Michael then showed me how this watcher operates. It waits for emotional cracks, a sudden burst of anger, a moment of despair, an argument left unresolved, a wound reopened, a silent bitterness that no one else sees. It waits for these things because such moments release a kind of invitation, a spiritual vulnerability. The watcher does not enter by force. It enters through openings. Michael said, "Tell them that the doorway to every home is not always wood or stone. The true doorway is the condition of the heart that lives within it." Then, the vision changed once more. I saw a family inside a house. They were sitting together, speaking in calm tones. A warmth flowed through the room, a quiet peace that made even the shadows on the wall seem gentle. The watcher approached the doorway but could not draw near. Its shape recoiled, shrinking away as though it had touched fire. Michael leaned toward me and said, "This is a home where peace is guarded, where forgiveness is quickly offered, where prayer has left a fragrance in the air." In that moment, I realized something powerful. The watcher is not drawn to houses of darkness, but to houses of exhaustion, houses where no one realizes how spiritually thin the atmosphere has become. Next, Michael showed a different home. In this one, there was tension simmering in the air. Words had been spoken earlier, harsh ones that still lingered unseen like smoke. The child in the home sat quietly, watching the parents move through the house, carrying stress like heavy weights. There was no prayer, no peace, only fatigue and routine. The watcher drew close, not entering, not touching, only observing, but with a hunger that made my spirit shiver. "This," Michael whispered, "is why the warning is urgent. Not to frighten, but to awaken. For the watcher is not powerful, but it is persistent. And if ignored, it gains strength through the openings people neglect to close. My beloved child, this is why heaven speaks tonight. This is why the message was given not as a gentle nudge, but as a final warning. Someone is watching your house, not with the eyes of a predator, but with the patience of a strategist. Yet you hold the power. You hold the authority. The moment you awaken, the moment you invite light into your home, the watcher retreats. Michael stands ready, but heaven waits for you to respond, to recognize the movements in your own soul. My beloved child, settle your spirit and listen closely, for what I am about to tell you holds a truth few ever understand. When Archangel Michael finished showing me the watcher at the door, the vision shifted again, and this time he brought me to a great doorway, tall as the heavens and wide as eternity. It was not carved of wood or hewn from stone. It shimmered like the surface of still water, reflecting not the world around it, but the world within the soul. Michael stood before it and placed his hand upon its surface, and as he did, ripples spread outward like circles across a quiet lake. "This," he said, "is the door between realms. Every home upon the earth has one like it, but most do not know it exists." His voice echoed without echo, as though the realm itself absorbed his words into its substance. I stepped closer, and when I did, I realized that this doorway was not simply a threshold, but a mirror to the spiritual condition of those who lived behind it. Some doors were bright, glowing like molten gold. Others were dim, flickering with faint light. And some were nearly dark, holding only a small ember fighting to survive. Michael continued, "A house is more than walls. A house is the meeting place of spirit, soul, and presence. The door between realms is shaped by the life lived within. This is the gate that darkness approaches. This is the gate that light guards." I felt those words pierce deeply, for I realized how many people believe their homes are safe simply because their doors are locked and their windows are shut. They secure their earthly entrances, but forget the greater door, the one that can be left open without a sound. In the vision, Michael lifted his hand again, and suddenly I was standing before the door of a humble home. It was small and quiet, yet its spiritual doorway blazed with brilliance. Soft waves of light flowed outward, warming the surroundings like sunrise. As I peered inside, I saw a family gathered in a circle. They were not praying loudly or performing great spiritual displays. They simply sat together in peace, speaking gently to one another, showing kindness, extending forgiveness, nurturing love. And I realized something profound. The light in their home did not come from grand rituals. It came from the purity of their hearts and the presence of love that dwelt among them. Michael spoke again. This is a home with strong walls, not because they built them with might, but because they built them with unity. Darkness cannot push through unity. Where love lives, shadows starve. Then the scene shifted abruptly. I found myself standing before another house. Its walls were strong in the natural world, freshly painted, well kept. But the spiritual doorway was cracked, fractured down the middle like broken glass. Through the crack seeped a dull, gray mist. Inside the home, the family was not fighting, but they were disconnected. Silent tension sat in the air like dust on forgotten shelves. A cold distance lived between them. No anger, no violence, just a quiet absence of connection. And I understood that spiritual weakness does not always appear as chaos. Sometimes it appears as emptiness. Michael said, "This door is broken not by sin alone, but by neglect. A home without unity becomes a home without light. And a home without light becomes a place where watchers linger." I felt a deep sadness rise within me, for I knew many homes in the world were like this, not destroyed, not damaged, but unguarded. Not by choice, but by weariness. The busyness of life had replaced the stillness of peace. Words of love had been replaced by silence. Moments of prayer had been replaced by distraction. Small cracks had formed, unnoticed, because no one looked for them. Then Michael turned toward me, his eyes fierce with urgency. "Tonight," he said, "the door between realms will be tested. Not to harm them, but to reveal the condition of the doorway they have built. Each home will feel it differently. Some will feel a tightening in the air. Some will feel sudden heaviness. Some will sense a presence watching. Some will feel a stirring, as though something luminous has brushed their hearts. The watchers are near, yes, but so is the army of light. The condition of the door determines what enters." The vision grew clearer. I saw homes lighting up one by one, as if invisible torches were being placed at their thresholds. These were the homes of those who would hear and respond. Homes where people would pause, even for a moment tonight, to reflect, to pray, to breathe deeply, to bring their hearts back into alignment with light. These homes would radiate like beacons, pushing back the watchers and welcoming the presence of Michael's host. My beloved child, this is why the warning matters. Your physical door may be locked, but what of the door between realms? Is it strong? Is it guarded? Is it glowing with peace, or thin with exhaustion? Heaven does not bring this message to shame you, but to prepare you. For tonight, The spiritual doorway of your home will stir, and what stirs will reveal much. My beloved child, steady your breath and open your heart, for what I am about to speak concerns the very night in which you are listening. When the Archangel finished showing me the doorway between realms, everything around us shifted again. I found myself standing on a quiet street that could have been from any village, any town, any city. Houses lined the road, darkened by night, some glowing softly from within, others heavy with silence. The wind did not blow, yet the trees trembled as though touched by unseen fingers. Michael walked before me, each step leaving a faint shimmer on the ground, as though even the earth acknowledged his command. He stopped, turned to me, and spoke words that caused my spirit to bow in reverence. Tonight, he said, every home will encounter a shift. It will not be loud. It will not be violent, but it will be unmistakable. What happens tonight will reveal who is awake and who is asleep, who guards their home and who ignores the signs, who listens to the whispers of heaven and who turns away in distraction. As he spoke, I felt the gravity of what was unfolding. This night was chosen for a reason, not to strike fear, but to awaken the awareness that so many have lost in the noise of daily life. Michael lifted his hand toward one of the homes, and suddenly I could see inside. A woman sat alone in her living room, her face weary, her thoughts heavy. She had been carrying pain, silently, for far too long. The air around her shifted, and I saw a shadow. One of the watchers leaned toward her window, not entering, not attacking, but observing her sorrow, as though waiting to use it. But then something unexpected happened. The woman placed her hand over her heart and whispered a small prayer, barely audible, yet full of sincerity. At that moment, the shadow recoiled. A warm light flickered through the room, faint but present, like the first spark of dawn. Michael turned to me and said, "This is the power of even the smallest cry toward heaven. It pushes back what watches. It stirs the angels into movement." Then he guided me to another home. This one was bright with laughter. A family gathered at a table, speaking joyfully, unaware of anything beyond their evening meal. And yet, as I looked closer, I saw something else. The unity had formed a shield around the house, an invisible barrier of peace. The watchers passed by this home, but could not draw near. Michael said, "Joy is a fortress. Unity is a wall. Love is a sword. The darkness cannot linger where hearts move in harmony." But not all homes looked like this. He took me next to a place where silence lived like a stranger. No voices, no warmth, no connection. A heaviness lay across the air like a thick blanket. In this home, the doorway between realms flickered weakly, barely producing light. I saw a shadow linger near the back door, almost curious, almost expectant. Michael's voice lowered. "This is a home without alertness. Not evil, not broken, simply asleep. And the watchers are drawn to sleep, for sleep weakens what was meant to stand guard." My beloved child, as this vision unfolded, I realized the shocking thing that will happen tonight is not an outward event, but an inward revelation. Heaven is allowing the veil to thin for a brief moment so that each home will feel the truth of what surrounds it. For some, it will feel like a sudden heaviness. For others, a stirring of warmth. For some, an unexplainable urge to check a window or step into another room. For others, a sudden flood of peace, as though an unseen presence has walked through the doorway. Michael said, "Tonight, the watchers will reveal themselves not by form, but by feeling. And the angels will reveal themselves the same way. Those who are alert will perceive it. Those who ignore it will wonder later why their spirits feel shaken." He spoke these words with a tenderness that surprised me, as though he cared deeply for every home, every soul, every heart that might feel uneasy tonight. And then, with a voice that carried both power and compassion, he said, "Tell them not to be afraid. Tell them to prepare. Tell them to lift their hearts toward heaven, even for a moment, for even the smallest flicker of awareness shifts the balance in their favor. Tonight is not meant to harm them. It is meant to awaken them. My beloved child, if you are hearing this now, then this message has reached you on purpose. Heaven does not speak without intention. Something will stir in your home tonight, not to frighten you, but to call you back into spiritual readiness. And if your heart feels the slightest pull while listening, know that heaven is already tending to your doorway. My beloved child, come close once more, for the message now turns toward you, your home, and the preparation heaven calls you to make. What I saw next in the vision was not frightening, nor was it grand. It was simple, and yet carried the full weight of spiritual wisdom. Michael stood before me, his wings folding gently behind him, as though he wished to quiet the atmosphere so I could hear with perfect clarity. The street, the houses, the shadows, all faded, and suddenly we were standing in a place that looked like a vast open field under a starlit sky. The air was calm, pure, untouched by fear or distraction. Michael spoke softly. "Now, tell them how to prepare their house." His tone was not demanding, not forceful. It was fatherly, the way a guardian speaks when he knows time is short, but help is near. Then the field around us shifted, and we stood inside a simple home, one that could have belonged to anyone. The floors were worn, the furniture modest, the air still. And yet there was something sacred about it. Michael said, "Preparation begins not with a ritual, nor with a ceremony, but with awareness. Let them become aware of their own hearts first." I watched as a man entered the room in the vision. His shoulders were heavy with the weight of the day. He sank into a chair, pressing his hands to his face. He had no words to pray. He had no strength to speak. And yet, without knowing it, he created a spiritual shift simply by turning his thoughts inward, by choosing to pause instead of rushing, by letting his spirit breathe. Michael said, "This is preparation. Stillness. Reflection. Honesty before heaven. It strengthens the doorway more than they know." Then I saw another scene. A woman stood in her kitchen, washing dishes. Her face showed frustration. Earlier, she had spoken harshly to someone she loved. The words lingered in the air. She paused, leaned against the counter, and whispered, "Forgive me." That single whisper, carried on breath alone, sent a flare of light through her home. Michael said, "This is preparation. A humble heart repairs the cracks faster than 1,000 empty prayers." The vision shifted again, showing a child sitting alone, hugging a pillow tightly. I felt the ache of loneliness in that room. But then, the child's grandmother walked in, placed a gentle hand on their head, and spoke a comforting word. The room warmed, the atmosphere shifted, and a soft glow filled the space. Comfort, Michael said, is preparation. Love spoken aloud is a shield. Tenderness is a barrier against the watchers. My beloved child, preparation is not complicated. Heaven does not demand elaborate rituals or perfect prayers. Preparation begins with simple acts that realign the house with light. A moment of gratitude spoken softly in the hallway. A small prayer whispered before sleep. A word of reconciliation between two people who have gone silent. These are the stones that rebuild the spiritual wall around a home. Michael then showed me what happens when someone chooses, even briefly, to recenter their spirit. Light would flow down from above, filling the rooms, moving along the walls like gentle fire. It did not burn. It illuminated. It found the hidden corners, the places where old wounds lingered, and it soothed them. It sealed the cracks. It strengthened the door between realms. He said, when they prepared their hearts, heaven prepares their homes. I watched as angels, small in stature compared to Michael but radiant with purpose, entered homes silently, like soft beams of moonlight slipping through the curtains. They inspected the spiritual doorway, reinforced the weak areas, strengthened the places where shadows once lingered. This is what happens, Michael said, when they choose even a moment of awareness. Heaven responds immediately. They are not alone. They have never been alone. He then turned his gaze toward me, and his expression grew intense, almost pleading. Tell them that preparation is not fear. Preparation is partnership. The watchers wait for unguarded hearts, but the angels wait for awakened ones. His words rang through me like the peal of a bell. My beloved child, hear this deeply. Tonight, before you sleep, take even 10 quiet seconds to turn your heart toward light. Whisper gratitude. Whisper forgiveness. Whisper hope. Whisper nothing if words fail you. Simply lift your thoughts. Heaven hears thoughts louder than shouts. Your preparation does not need to be perfect. It only needs to be sincere. And when you do this, your home becomes like a torch in the night. A place that draws angels, not watchers. A place that stands firm. A place where the shock of the night becomes not a threat, but a revelation. A holy awakening. A moment where you will know, without question, that something divine is touching your doorstep. My beloved child, rest your heart in this moment. For now we come to the part of the vision where the presence of Archangel Michael grew so magnificent, so mighty, that even the air around him seemed to tremble under the weight of his glory. After showing me how a home is prepared, Michael stepped back, and the small dwelling around us dissolved into radiant light. We were suddenly standing on a vast plain of brightness that stretched farther than the horizon. It felt like standing inside a living sunrise. The light was warm and gentle, but beneath it lay a strength that could split mountains and silence storms. Michael's armor gleamed like polished fire, reflecting the heavens themselves. His wings unfolded, stretching wider than any earthly space could hold, each feather a blade of light, sharp not with violence, but with divine purpose. I could feel the atmosphere shift as he prepared to reveal something sacred, something not often permitted to be shown to human eyes. He said in a voice that carried both thunder and tenderness, "Now, I will show you the armor that heaven places over those who awaken." A sword appeared in his hand, not forged of metal, but woven from pure brilliance. It pulsed like a heartbeat, steady and unwavering. "This," Michael said, "is the sword of light. It is not given to the flesh, but to the spirit. When a child of God stands in truth, speaks with love, and walks with humility, this sword rests over their home. Darkness trembles at its glow, for it cuts through deception the way dawn cuts through shadow." As he spoke, the sword lifted into the air, hovered above us, and then multiplied into thousands, each one drifting downward like falling stars. They descended toward homes I recognized from the earlier visions. Some swords hovered above houses filled with peace. Others hovered above houses where someone had whispered even a single prayer of sincerity. Michael said, "Every home that prepares becomes a fortress, and every fortress receives a sword of light." Next, Michael raised his arm and a shield appeared. It was wide as a wall, shimmering like molten silver. Symbols moved across its surface, ancient, living, shifting as though they were formed from the breath of heaven. "This is the shield of presence," he said. "It surrounds those who choose light. It forms a barrier the watchers cannot cross. When someone chooses forgiveness, even when they have been wronged, the shield strengthens. When someone chooses hope in the middle of despair, the shield expands. When someone chooses compassion instead of anger, the shield becomes impenetrable." I felt the shield's energy radiate outward, and suddenly I could see homes glowing with this very protection. Some shields towered high, strong and luminous. Others flickered faintly, as though waiting for the occupants of the home to take just one more step toward light. But even the faintest shield was stronger than the watchers who roamed the night. Michael said, "The shield grows where the heart softens. Its strength is not in perfection, but in sincerity." Then he lifted both sword and shield, and in that moment his presence grew so vast that it felt as though the entire sky bowed. "The armor I wear," he said, "is not mine alone. It is given to every soul who stands in truth. It is given to every household that awakens. It is given to every heart that chooses to rise." The brilliance around him intensified, and suddenly I saw angels, hundreds, thousands, appearing across the plain. They were smaller than Michael, but powerful, each one clothed in garments of soft flame. They carried not weapons, but instruments of protection. Some held lanterns of light, others held mantles woven from heavenly cloth, and others carried books that glowed with living words. Michael said, "These are the sentinels. They watch over those who prepare their homes. They tend the thresholds. They guard the doorways between realms." Each angel then turned and began to move toward the earth, descending like gentle rainfall toward the homes of the awakened. I saw them enter houses quietly, touching walls, touching hearts, touching the invisible hinges of spiritual doors. Their presence brought warmth, clarity, and peace. One angel placed a hand over a child's head as they slept. Another stood at a doorway, watching over the night. Another knelt beside a weary person who had been crying quietly, wiping away tears with fingers made of starlight. Michael looked at me and said, "This is the armor of heaven. Not metal, not iron, but presence, truth, and divine protection. The watchers cannot stand against it. Darkness cannot pierce it. Fear cannot survive near it." Then he stepped closer, and his voice softened into something almost like a whisper. "Tell them, my beloved friend. Tell them that they are not weak. Tell them that they are not unprotected. Tell them that the same armor that shields the hosts of heaven is offered to them tonight. All they must do is choose the light. Even the smallest choice opens the door for angels to stand guard. My beloved child, hear this deeply. Heaven does not send Michael to warn you without also sending protection. The watchers may observe, but the warriors of light surround. And when you choose even a flicker of faith tonight, the very armor of Archangel Michael will stand over your home like a fortress. My beloved child, come closer, for now we arrive at one of the most delicate and holy parts of the message. The signs, the gentle whispers, the subtle movements that will let you know an angel has stepped into your home tonight. When the vision shifted again, I found myself standing in the midst of countless homes, moving through them, not by walking, but by the guidance of light. I was shown what many people never perceive, because heaven often moves with quiet hands. Angels do not always arrive with trumpets or thunder. Sometimes they come the way dawn enters a dark room, softly, silently, but unmistakably. Michael stood beside me as we watched one home after another. A mother sat rocking her child, humming softly. The air around her shimmered faintly, like invisible dust glistening in sunlight. Michael said, "This is a sign. Peace that arrives without explanation. Peace that settles like a warm blanket when the heart is anxious. This is the presence of an angel." In another home, a man lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to quiet his thoughts. Worry twisted through his mind like tangled vines. But then, without warning, his breath slowed. A calmness washed over him, and he felt, for just a moment, as though someone had gently touched his shoulder, someone unseen yet deeply familiar. Michael said, "This is a sign. The quieting of a storm within the mind. The soft release of tension. The sudden, unearned reassurance that everything will be all right. Angels speak through peace before they ever speak through visions." I was then shown a child sitting on the floor, playing with a simple toy. The child paused, looked toward an empty corner of the room, smiled, and then returned to playing. The corner glowed faintly for a moment, almost like a lantern hidden just behind the veil. "This," Michael said, "is a sign. Children perceive what adults filter out. Their spirits are unburdened enough to recognize light. When a child looks toward nothing and smiles, heaven has come near." Next, we entered a home where a woman was folding laundry. Her face looked tired, yet her spirit held a quiet strength. As she worked, a breeze passed through the room, though no window was open, rustling a small note she had pinned to the wall, words she had written long ago, but forgotten. She turned, read the note, and tears filled her eyes, for the message was exactly what she needed in that moment. "This," Michael said, "is a sign. Angels often move through reminders. They stir forgotten hope. They bring lost encouragement back into sight. Nothing shifts by accident when heaven visits." And I saw a man sitting alone at a kitchen table. His head was bent. He felt the weight of guilt for mistakes from his past. He whispered a quiet apology to heaven, not expecting an answer. Yet suddenly, warmth wrapped around his chest, like a soft embrace. The corners of the room brightened, though no lamp had been turned on. His breath caught as he felt a presence sit near him, gentle, reassuring. Michael said, "This is a sign. Forgiveness carried by an angel. They draw near when the heart softens." As the vision continued, I began to recognize patterns. Angels do not always appear with visible wings or radiant forms. They move through atmosphere, through emotion, through sudden clarity, through unexpected comfort. They come through the feeling of being watched over rather than watched. They come through a thought that feels too wise to be your own. They come through a memory that surfaces at exactly the right moment. They come through calmness returning to a heart that has battled storms all day. Michael turned to me and said, "Tell them that not every sign will be dramatic. Some will be as gentle as a whisper, but all will be real." Then he lifted his hand and the vision shifted once more. This time I saw angels standing in doorways, silent guardians, glowing softly. Some held lanterns of white fire that brightened the room. Some carried long strands of light, brushing them along the walls, sealing them from the inside. Some simply stood with wings folded, watching with deep compassion. Michael said, "Tonight, many will feel watched. Let them not fear. For if they have prepared their hearts, the watchers outside will not prevail, and the watchers inside, the angels, will make their presence known. They will stand where fear once lingered. They will sit where sorrow once rested. They will sweep the air clean with their wings." My beloved child, one sign that touched me deeply was what happened in a home where man and woman had argued earlier that day. They sat apart, heavy with regret. As night deepened, they found themselves drawn unexpectedly toward one another. A softness entered the room, a tenderness neither had the strength to create on their own. The silence became warm instead of cold, and just for a moment, an invisible glow hovered between them. Michael said, "This is a sign. Angels mend what people break when hearts are willing." There was also the sign of sudden clarity. A person pacing their house in confusion suddenly stops, feels guided, feels grounded, feels aware of the next step they must take. This is no accident. This is the whisper of an angel touching the mind. And then there's the sigh, a long, deep, unforced exhale that comes from nowhere, releasing pressure you did not know you were carrying. Angels often bring relief through breath. Michael concluded with these words, "Tell them that tonight, the signs will be subtle but sacred. Tell them that if they feel warmth, peace, clarity, release, or a gentle stirring in their home, they must know that heaven has stepped inside. My beloved child, keep your spirit open and your heart attentive tonight. For even now, the angels draw near. My beloved child, draw even nearer now, for what I am about to share carries the weight of triumph. Until now, we have walked together through warning, revelation, preparation, and the gentle signs of angelic presence. But heaven did not give this message merely to alert you. It was given to assure you of victory. Victory over the watcher. Victory over fear. Victory over the shadow that lingers at the threshold of many homes. And as the vision unfolded, this victory came like a dawn breaking through the thickest night. After the angels entered the homes of those who prepared their hearts, I saw the watchers grow restless. They shifted uneasily in the shadows outside the houses, their forms flickering as though disturbed by something they could not control. Michael stood beside me, towering in radiant strength, watching the shadows with eyes that saw beyond the physical world. The watchers observe, he said, but they are not sovereign. They wait, but they do not prevail where truth stands. Tonight, their influence will break. The plane of vision expanded once more, and the entire landscape of homes, tens of thousands, stretching farther than sight, glowed like lanterns scattered across the earth. Some glowed brightly, some faintly, but all carried a flicker of light where the message had reached and the heart had responded. And then, my beloved child, something extraordinary happened. Michael lifted his sword of light, and as he did, a wave of brilliance surged outward from him, traveling across the world with breathtaking speed. It moved through streets, through rooms, through walls, through the very air itself. Every watcher it touched began to unravel, not violently, not dramatically, but as though their very substance could not withstand the presence of pure illumination. They shrank away from the houses, pulled back from the windows, retreated from the doorways. Their forms did not flee with the fury of beasts, or with the resignation of shadows that know their time is done. They dissolved into the night, leaving no trace of their former presence. For darkness cannot resist light. It has no weapon against it. It merely hides until people forget to shine. Michael spoke with a voice that carried calm authority. This is victory. This is what happens when even one home awakens, when even one heart remembers, when even one prayer rises. The watchers have no claim where the light dwells. As he said these words, I felt a tremendous sense of relief, like a burden being lifted not only from the homes in the vision, but from the very atmosphere of the world itself. The scene shifted again. I found myself standing in a home where earlier a shadow had pressed against the door. Inside, a man now sat quietly with his hands clasped. His earlier heaviness had faded, replaced by a stillness that felt sacred. His doorway, once dim, now shone as if fire had been kindled behind it. Outside, nothing stirred. Michael said he chose light. And because he chose light, darkness broke. I saw this pattern repeated in home after home. A small act of preparation had invited the angelic host, and the host had driven out what once watched. Then Michael showed me something even more profound. He revealed what happens within a soul when victory arrives. I saw hearts that had been heavy suddenly lift. I saw people who had been restless suddenly given peace. I saw anger dissolve into softness. I saw confusion quiet into clarity. I saw a young woman who had been wrestling with fear suddenly stand and breathe deeply, sensing a presence of strength beside her. I saw a man who had been carrying guilt feel it break off him, like chains crumbling to dust. These inner victories were not isolated. They were connected to the very moment heaven intervened. Michael said, "Victory is not only around them. It is within them." The watchers pressed against their homes because they sensed inner weakness. But now, the weakness has been replaced by awareness, by readiness, by awakening. The battle is won before it even reaches the door. Then he showed me the greatest sign of all, the transformation of the spiritual doorways. Where once some doors flickered weakly, they now shone with renewed strength. Where once cracks had gaped, they were now sealed. Where once light struggled to remain, it now pulsed steadily. The realm between their homes and heaven aligned with protection. Michael turned toward me, his expression fierce yet filled with compassion. "Tell them," he said, "that victory is not a distant hope. It is happening now. While they listen, while they awaken, while they open even one corner of their heart to the presence of heaven. The watchers flee. The angels stand guard. And the night shifts in their favor." The vision then showed something that moved me deeply. Angels stationed themselves at the four corners of homes, not only those who prayed, but those who hoped. Not only those who prepared, but those who listened. Their wings formed gentle arches above the rooftops, and their light seeped into the walls, the hallways, the rooms. No watcher could return. No shadow dared approach. Michael said, "Tonight will be remembered in the spirit, as the night the watchers withdrew and the guardians took their place." My beloved child, take this message into your soul. Victory has already begun. You need not fear the watcher. You need not tremble at the shifting of the night. For the one who stands with you is greater than anything that has ever stood against you. And the armor of heaven, the presence of angels, the shield of light, all rest upon your home when your heart opens even a little. My beloved child, come close one last time, for the message now rests gently in its final breath. After the victory unfolded across the homes of the awakened, the vision began to soften. The brilliant plains, the radiant angels, the dissolving shadows, all slowly faded into a warm, golden stillness. I found myself standing once more in the quiet of my own chamber, the lamp burning low, the night resting softly outside my window. Yet something inside me had changed. I was no longer the man who had entered that room hours before. I had been a witness to the movements of heaven. Michael's presence lingered, not in full form, but as a mantle of light resting over the room. His voice reached me one final time, gentle yet carrying the authority of every message he had delivered. "Tell them this," he said. "Tell them to walk forward without fear. Tell them that tonight was not meant to frighten, but to awaken. Tell them that heaven stands with them now, not in shadows, not in silence, but in strength." My beloved child, hear this deeply. Your home is not abandoned. Your spirit is not unguarded. Your night is not empty. The watcher that once lingered has lost its claim, and the angels who entered stand watch still. Let your heart move forward with trust. Let your home remain a place of peace. And let this message travel beyond you, for when heaven entrusts a word to a soul, it becomes a sacred duty to let it shine farther, reach deeper, and awaken others who walk their nights unaware. Carry this light. Share this warning. Let it ripple outward as an act of love, a gesture of protection for those you care for. And may every home that hears it rise in strength. Amen.